All right. Let's see. Welcome, everybody. We're here at ATL BitLab. This is building a DIY Lightning node. This is Grant here. He's going to show us how to set up a DIY Lightning node using Start9 Embassy OS. First part of this is going to be streamed, so you can watch along with his demonstration. We might kind of shut down the stream after that just because we're going to break off into groups and start building our own nodes together with Grant's guidance. So you'll be able to watch the initial demo here. And I think you should be able to ask questions in the chat after that. We're just not going to be streaming video of everybody, flashing Linux stuff onto their laptops and all that. So yeah, just ask questions in the chat if you have them. And without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Grant.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Stephen. So today we're going to be building our own Bitcoin and Lightning nodes, and we're actually going to be leveraging some open source software by a company called Start9. They have this really interesting operating system. It's called Embassy OS, and it's actually quite, their entire deal is that they have equipment that they sell already preloaded with the operating system, but then they also make the operating system available on their GitHub page for anyone to download and review the source code of it. So we're going to be I've downloaded the source code. I'll go through the process of how you want to flash the image of the operating system, the image onto a USB, and then we can go into actually installing it onto the hardware. It's all very, if you've ever installed an operating system before, it's all pretty straightforward, and so this is why it's pleb friendly. The other thing that's really interesting about Embassy OS is that it's like a sovereign computer, a sovereign. They really promote sovereign computing, and sovereign ownership of your data. And so they offer a variety of other things besides just Bitcoin and Lightning software. They have, let's see here if I can get into some of the other. They've got a marketplace. This is kind of similar to some of these other node software that's out there, but they have BTC Pay Server. They have Matrix, which is a secure communication chat room, like a Discord, but an encrypted Discord, decentralized encrypted Discord. A lot of really great Nextcloud, which is a file like a Dropbox, but a personal Dropbox. So a lot of really cool software that you can run in addition to running a Bitcoin node and a Lightning node. So that's kind of why, one of the reasons why I've selected it. The other reason why it's being open source, anyone can review the actual code. A lot of these other all-encompassing operating systems, they're not open source. And it's kind of a, if you don't have confidence in the fact that anyone else can review your code, that's a kind of a red flag. So yeah, we'll just go through the process again. They've got a lot of docs. They've got a DIY section. You can build on a Raspberry Pi. They have one of their like lower tier products that they sell, Start9 sells, is actually a Raspberry Pi. They've beefed it up. But the other option they have that's more of their enterprise grade option is it's called an Intel NUC, but it's an i7 more beefy computer. And so Embassy OS, again, this is why it's really helpful, is because they have ARM-based images and they also have x86-based images. So a lot of projects that are out there only focus on ARM, or they only focus on x86. And so this actually like encompasses a lot more things. They have quite a bit of support when it comes to the guides and the equipment and stuff like that. So it's a really good pleb-friendly, entry-level friendly option if you're trying to build your first node.
Yeah, Grant, I think something went wrong with like the screen share.
Okay.
Could you stop sharing and then reshare it again? We can see it all good up here, but then on the...
I think it's because I'm casting my...
Oh, you're casting an individual tab. That's what it was.
I need a screen.
Yeah,
Well,
make another like screen, another browser window. Now here's what I'm saying. Make a new
Yeah, I was just showing off the docs. So here's their support docs. I was referencing this DIY. Do you see this?
Yep.
Okay, DIY section. And again, within here, they've got guides for both Raspberry Pi and x86. So just for the demo today, I'm going to be installing on a mini desktop PC. And so the one I have is a Dell Optiplex Micro. This is what it looks like. We can probably show. It's used in like call centers. It's used in hospitals. And what happens with a lot of these devices is that they get bulk sold off when a lot of these companies do equipment refreshes. And so you can actually find them at relatively good prices on eBay. So I've got, I'll watch the 750 is what I usually go for, but I'll just watch different ones and how they're sold and look for a good deal. Like usually the problem is that they might have enough in terms of like processor, CPU, RAM, but then they might not have enough internal storage. So like this one's just 500 gigs. And this is actually a larger desktop. It's not a micro. This is not a micro, but still a potential option. the micro is an example of what I have there.
Is it feasible to like add on more storage to one of these things?
Yeah, and so actually what we'll do is I just got a new some more storage the other day, and so I can kind of show what it looks like internally inside this machine. It's a very modular. That's another reason why it's really great. Is if you don't have enough RAM, or if you want to upgrade, or if there's a component that you need to replace, it's very modular. Again, a lot of the parts are pretty cheap because they're being sold off in bulk, so you can get something to replace. So it's actually a really, in terms of like a cheap node, getting up and getting running, it's a really great option. So yeah, let's talk about the actual hardware. Let me show off, because we can do that. I've got my webcam here, and I'm just gonna open up. I've got my device. So why don't you cast my webcam?
You're on.
And maybe if I can see what I'm actually looking at. So yeah, we'll do this. So this is the actual Dell Optiplex 750. I have a i5 6th generation processor. It's like a 6550, I think, 6550T, and this actually only has 4 gigs of RAM, but I can upgrade it. And then I've installed some additional storage because it didn't even come with storage when I originally got it. So just to show you the process of installing some additional storage, it's as simple as taking off this back nut. If I can get the nut off. I should take out this clip. It's for the power supply. Okay, taking out that, and then pushing the front panel, and then you have all the guts. And so this is the solid state drive. This is a 1 terabyte solid state drive. It didn't come with this, and so I had to buy this off of Amazon. You can get relatively at a good price off of Amazon. You can get these for like $40, depending on which brand. Usually they can run pretty cheap. So yeah, that was pretty easy. The one thing that I recently did was, if you see this is an M.2 drive. This is a M SATA drive, and it has faster read-write speeds. And it's a VNAND SSD. This is a Samsung 1 terabyte. And again, that's what's really cool about these machines, is that you can have a 1 terabyte solid state drive like this, and you can also have another, M.2 SSD. And so I actually have, I've been playing around with loading up, different node software. The other thing that we'll get into is, with Start9, you can actually back up your node, and maybe you would want to do a setup where you're actually running your node on something like this, and then you're backing up your node to this SATA drive. So yeah, it's just like interesting combinations you can do. Of course, a lot of this is all swappable. If you have problems with the fan, here's the RAM. I've got 1 stick of 4 gigabytes of RAM, another slot here for another stick of RAM, and then the CPU is underneath the cooler here. So yeah, it's all very modular, very upgradable, small form factor, and makes for a good cheap node. So let me just put this all back together.
Would you say these parts are easier to find than Raspberry Pi parts?
I would say at this point, yeah, definitely a lot easier to find. Anything's easier to find. There are alternatives to Raspberry Pis, and I think a lot of people are just not familiar with that those options. Again, Raspberry Pis are ARM-based, and there just needs to be more development, I guess, in terms of like focusing on ARM architecture. And I think Apple's kind of helping in that regard, because a lot of their devices are now ARM-based. So we might see more ARM CPU architecture focused software. But again, this is x86. This is an Intel chip, and yeah, it's pretty common. So makes it easy for us in terms of getting our hands on them. So in terms of installing the solid state drive, it's just usually they come with these plastic bays, but then these are also cheap to find online too. If it doesn't come with it, then it's just a matter of finagling it around everything else here, and locking it in. There we go. We installed it back.
Is there like a minimum like hard drive size you need for like the Start 9 operating system?
So I think it might be. Well, I should just, before I say, I could just go and look. I think it's like 30 gigs.
Not too bad.
64 minimum, 64 gigs,
Got it.
and you can run on 4 gigs of RAM
Nice.
as well. And then I guess I haven't tried this. A single CPU, at 2 gigahertz. These are all the minimum requirements that you can actually run. So my machine here that I have in my hands is more along the recommended, except for I don't have 8 gigs of RAM, which I'm going to upgrade. I need to upgrade. But again, the reason why they have these recommended requirements that are a little bit higher is because you can do a lot more with your Embassy OS. You can use that as a file server. You can use it as a chat room server. So if you're going to get that level of functionality, in addition to running Bitcoin, a Bitcoin node and a Lightning node, you would want to be at the recommended. Sorry, you want to be the recommended. So let me get this reassembled. Sorry.
You're good.
And then I'll show the process. We can just show grabbing the files off of the website. I can flash. I've got flashed USB sticks already, but we can just go through the process of flashing, and then we'll go and install a brand new version of Embassy OS on this machine. I'll plug back in. And I guess the other thing that's important, actually, Stephen, if you want to show my webcam again, it's hard to see, but the video display ports, that's another thing that's really helpful with this device. I have an HDMI, I have a display port, and I also have a VGA. And I've had difficulty, there can be difficulties depending on how you want to connect to the node. Of course, once it's up and running, you can always connect to it over the network, but that initial setup, if you want to be able to jump in and look at, if you want to have a dedicated monitor, this definitely helps in terms of that initial setup. But then if you're someone that likes having an actual dedicated monitor, that's also helpful.
Grant, what would you estimate your all-in on that is?
So on this particular device, I'm probably at around, I bought 2 of them at once. And so I got a discount because I did that. I think for the device itself, I paid around $80, and then I had to upgrade, and I had to buy a $40 SSD. And actually, this one was supposed to come with 8 gigs of RAM, and my eBay seller jipped me. And they ended up crediting me back like that additional stick is worth like $12. So they credited me back $12.
Got it.
But yeah, it's about what, like 120 probably around there.
Okay.
Which, when you start looking at Raspberry Pis, Raspberry Pis, an 8 gig Raspberry Pi 4 right now is selling for $75, and that's if you can get it. And then you have to have the solid state drive. You need that as well. You need an enclosure for your solid state drive. You need you also need an enclosure for the Raspberry Pi itself. Things can start getting. You also need an SD card.
Power supply.
You need a power supply. So things could actually start getting upwards of like definitely more than 120. Probably could get upwards of like 160, maybe 180. When all things come.
My experience with Pis is you need a heat sink and fan too.
A heat sink and fan?
Yeah, if you try running like a Lightning node on there, it'll eventually get too hot because it's just downloading Bitcoin blocks all the time. It gets hot, so then you need to get a heat sink and fan. And then it's like, oh no, the initial case I bought doesn't work, doesn't fit the heat sink, so then you need to buy a new case.
Yeah. I have an example of, I guess I can show this, an entire heat sink. This is a very popular one too. So I've got a Raspberry Pi. I'll show this. Here's my Raspberry Pi, and its entire case is a heat sink.
Oh,
It's
nice.
entirely a heat sink. But yeah, they do get hot. So. And then I was talking about one of the things that's really common, if I have it here, is buying something like this, which is a USB enclosure for a solid state drive. So you can, just like that solid state drive that I was showing off before, you can put one in there. And that's usually what a lot of the people do when they're building Raspberry Pis. They'll use something like this and just buy a $40 solid state drive. But this itself is like $10 too. So it can rack up. You can get definitely well over 120 when this Dell Optiplex has already got a case. It's already got fans. It's already got a heat sink, So it's a lot of added benefits that you get for something like that. Alrighty, so let's just go through the process. I mean, I don't know if we need to, but going through the process of downloading the files, we can verify the files and then flashing it onto a USB. It wouldn't take that long, so I'll do it really quick. So let me just get to the DIY x86 because again we're running an Intel-based device. So again, following along with the guide, they want you to download the ISO. I've already downloaded it, so I'm not gonna go through the weight of actually having it download. Let me get to my files here. I've got all my images. So here's Embassy OS. So I'm gonna grab I've got a USB. This is 32 gigs USB storage device. I'm gonna plug it in to my laptop here. I'm running Ubuntu on my base machine here, and I have Balena Etcher, and I'm going to use Balena in order to write the image onto the USB. So just go back to my images. I guess before I do this, maybe it'd be helpful to show how to verify the actual file is authentic and actually comes from the from Start9. So I'm just going to do a SHA-SUM comparison, and this is something I can do because I'm running Ubuntu. I can do a SHA-SUM check. Let me just get to the where's the release page. So you can do here's the SHA-256 checksums of the different files. They have, the Raspberry Pi file, then they have the AMD64, which is our file that we're going to be using, the checksums. So I can do basically a checksum on this file. So I just get to my desktop where I have the stored images, and then SHA-256 sum, and then the name of the file, which is EOS, and then AM ISO. And we'll just compare the checksums of what the file I downloaded and the file that is on the site here. So they match up. So yeah, so now we can image the file onto our flash drive. So going again to my desktop images, there's the file. I've selected it's already on here, so we'll just do it again. I'll select my USB and then flash. And then I gotta type in my passcode.
Now, it occurs to me there might be some people in the room who are not familiar with using the word image in this context. Maybe you could elaborate just what that means.
So it's usually a precompiled of all the different binaries and components of an operating system into a single file that then you can, when booting up a machine, it can utilize to actually install that operating system onto a hard drive.
You must do this all the time because you have an entire folder full of images.
I probably don't. I like playing around. This
Yeah.
isn't necessarily something I do in terms of my day job, but
You went to
it's
desktop images, and I was expecting to see a lot of cat photos, and instead
Yeah.
it's like TrueNAS, Electrum server. Da, 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 da.
yeah, I've got an interesting image folder on my desktop for sure. So yeah, that completed, and now we've got a USB that we can now plug into our machine and flash this operating system onto. So let's go through the process of doing that.
So if somebody from home wants to do it, they will have to log in another computer, download the files, the same thing that you're doing, right?
Yes, they'll have to have their own personal laptop or PC where they can download the file and then write the image to a USB. And then you'll take that USB over to your machine that you're wanting to set as a node.
And there's Windows-based checksums too. You don't have to use Ubuntu.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you. I'm telling
Yep.
everyone.
Yep.
On the stream.
I'm not versed with Windows. I've left Windows behind, so that's good to know. Okay, let me try to eject this. It's just not liking to eject. Should not be unplugged. Writing data. Why is it still writing data? That's interesting. What should be done?
Live troubleshooting.
Yeah, this is the curse of doing it live. I'm just gonna rip it. I'm just gonna rip it. All right, and if it fails, then I have another one that we can use. All right. So let's switch back to.
On it.
Webcam.
Yeah, let me just make sure I see it.
So, but for people at home, if they fail, what they have to do? They have to like delete everything that is.
Yeah,
on
it
their
probably would be
device
better
and
to
start again.
format. Like, it's probably not good because I already had it on here. It probably isn't good that I tried to write it again to this USB. So I would say, yeah, format your USB, make sure it's clean and wiped, and then try again. So, but for brevity, I'm just going to move forward. I have another one that I can use if it doesn't work. We'll just do this for now. The other thing too is it's nice to have a front USB to be able to plug in your flashed.
I'll keep plugging your other one just in case.
Just plug in my other one just in case.
The principle's the same.
Okay, I'm plugging in my other one. All right, so now powering up, and here's the thing where you have to snipe your boot up process, your boot up.
You're pressing like F2, right?
So right now I'm pressing like F2 to try to. There we go. So it's hard to see, and I can't turn it black. This is your boot up menu. It's very basic. So again, if you've ever done something like this where you install a new operating system, it's pretty straightforward. I was able to press F2. Sometimes you have to press escape. Sometimes it's F10. It just depends on your device. And usually when it shows that initial logo, like mine was a Dell logo, it might say down at the bottom if you want to get to boot up options, what button to press. If it doesn't, you can just look up their device model and Google what is my hotkey to get into boot up options. So every device has this. So it's usually pretty straightforward. And so it's just a matter of I'm in my boot up options right now on my boot sequence, and I'm going to specify my USB storage device to be the primary device that I want to boot into. So it's at the top. And then you see there I have my Samsung Evo Plus 1 terabyte. That's that M.2 drive, that small, tiny drive. And then I also have my SanDisk SSD Plus, that SATA drive. I have that 1 terabyte SATA drive there as well. So we're just going to boot into the USB, and then we'll install it onto the Samsung M.2 drive. So it's currently set appropriately, so I'm just going to exit. And then it should restart and boot up into should boot using my USB. If all things work. Yeah, so that's one of the things too. Embassy will do that. It'll give you a boot sound if you have a microphone or a speaker. Yep, we're in the boot menu now of Embassy. So we're in our USB. We're going to install Embassy OS. And so one of the things that is kind of interesting, we're using equipment that Embassy themselves don't provide. And so one of the things that happens is they don't support all the various types of wireless NICs that are out there. All different devices have different drivers for wireless NICs. And so Embassy, they're not supporting some of that. So
NIC is network interface card.
Network interface card. So if your Wi-Fi card isn't working when you install Embassy, it's probably because the drivers were not included in the base image, right? The base image includes all these different components. It probably because Embassy didn't include that in their base image, because again, they're only really building it for their own hardware. We're using their software in a Frankenstein way for our own purposes. So if it doesn't have the wireless driver for your device, this is where people start using like a USB NIC or with a driver already on that NIC, on that card. Or, one reason why I prefer the Dell Optiplex is because they have a wired NIC. And again, these are a little bit more supported in terms of their standard hardware. And so usually it works pretty well with Embassy's operating system, their OS. So another good reason to use the Dell Optiplex. So we're going to install Start9. They want us to select a disk. We're going to install into our Samsung drive. We're going to reinstall Embassy OS. I guess okay. So it's seen that I actually already had Embassy OS on my SSD. I wonder if because on my other one I don't have anything on it. Maybe we just go to the other one. So I'm going to do my SanDisk, which is again another 1 terabyte. Yeah. So this one doesn't have Embassy yet. We'll just, for the sake of this presentation, we'll just install it on this brand new drive so everyone can see what it looks like on brand new equipment. So completely erase the disk. There's nothing on it, so I don't care. So continue.
Could you take this disk, and so your other Dell Optiplex that you have, could you take this SSD that you're loading this onto and just pop it into the next one?
Yep.
But I guess the question really would be, would that fail in terms of any of the other add-ons? I don't think that it would.
Nope.
Okay.
It's agnostic. The hardware it doesn't matter. The hardware will just run whatever the storage medium has available to it. So
okay.
The hardware is not looking at anything. There's nothing that we're installing on the hardware. Everything's on the SSD itself. So if you wanted to pop it out of this device and you want to put it in, you could probably, what I could do is I could take out this SSD. I have that in USB enclosure, right? I could put it in that USB enclosure and I could plug it into my laptop and I could go into my boot options and I could boot in and I could go to my laptop. It's agnostic to the hardware.
Got it.
It's all the storage is what we're dealing with.
And how big? I didn't see. How big was the ISO file you downloaded? Approximately.
I think it's like 3 gigs.
Okay.
It's 1.1.
Okay.
Nice.
Alrighty, so now they want us to remove the USB stick and reboot. So I'm going to remove and I'm going to reboot. I might have pulled it too soon. Yeah, I think I pulled it too soon. We'll just try to reboot.
We have to do it over again?
No, I don't think so. Let me try powering off. Nothing like doing it live. Okay.
Hopefully it doesn't boot into the other one you made the other day.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I should probably change the boot order.
Yeah, go to the BIOS.
Yeah. Now it's yelling at me. So I'm gonna hold down my power button to force power off. It's frozen. Okay, we'll try. I'm gonna boot into boot options, and I'm gonna change the boot priority so we can get into the SanDisk SSD. Yeah, if it'll come up. Nope, it's not coming up. I did power on. Apologies.
Black screen of death.
Here it goes. It takes a second. All right, so we're in the boot options. I'm going to change the boot sequence. I'm going to bump up this guy. I'm going to apply. I'm going to OK. I'm going to exit. It's going to reboot. And we'll see if we actually successfully installed or if that error was because I pulled it.
Got somebody on the stream here. It's cool. So.
Steven, where are you streaming this? On the Discord or somewhere else?
YouTube,
On YouTube.
Twitch, and Twitter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it's
And that StreamYard
StreamYard,
does
yeah.
all that. It streams with 3 services. Cool.
Yeah, it's just kind of like Open Broadcaster, but it's just like really simple and easy to use. Not open source, you pay for it, but it's so easy to use.
Okay.
I think I screwed it up. Oh no, sorry. No, I'm right. So after we've installed the operating system onto the brand new SSD, the 1 terabyte SSD, and we get prompted with this initial screen here. I don't know if you can see that. It says start fresh or recover. So that's one of the things too. You can recover from a backup of your Embassy. Embassy has backup functionality built in. So if you have files within your Nextcloud, your Dropbox-like thing, you can restore and get back access to your other apps.
But that is if you used it before, right?
This is if you used it before.
If you're from scratch.
You're from scratch, we're going to do a start fresh. Select our storage device. Okay, so I guess it's wanting us to select what is the device we're going to use. We're going to make a really complicated password here. Anyone want to guess what my password is?
11 BitClubs?
Password 1234.
And is that what all the people in this room should make their password?
Definitely not.
Is that password to all your devices, Grant?
It's I don't know.
Wait, is that the master password for Strike?
That might be. You can try. You can go ahead and try. It'd be a nice attempt. I recommend. I actually don't know any of my passwords except for one password, and that's to get into my password vault. Everything else. And then exactly. I recommend, and that's one of the things that Embassy offers is they offer Vault Warden, which is a cool way to back up your password vault to your own self-custody storage.
Okay.
So it works with a software app called Bitwarden, which is a very popular password vault. And yeah.
So if you're relying on your own Vault Warden to get your Bitwarden passwords,
Yeah.
but your computer got offline, right? The internet connection to your house is down.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to get your passwords, right?
So you could there's like a little bit of local caching that occurs with the apps.
Yeah.
And in terms, I don't know all the details about it because sometimes you can load your passwords without being connected to the internet.
Okay. I'll refresh the
So I think like if there's any new additions, right? There's like a certain amount.
Yeah, Grant. So if you can read everything, but you just can't make changes. It's read only when it's offline.
Okay. All right. Have we entered the matrix?
We have entered the matrix,
Crazy shit. man.
and we are now ready to continue to log in. So, and it's very simple in terms of how it looks. It's just a web browser. I don't know if you could tell, but it's just a web browser. I think it's even like a Firefox web browser. actually. And at this point, you can actually access this machine over the network. We just would have to figure out the unique. Well, you have to figure out the IP. Then for Embassy OS, they generate a unique host name for each device. So you'd have to figure that out within the interface here, and that's what we'll do. We'll figure it out. So I put my really complicated password, and then here is our embassy. And in here, it's kind of hard to see, and maybe at this point it might be better for me to jump over to my machine. But let's find the actual local IP. So we can go to System, we can go to About, and then within here we can see details about our embassy's IP address and the address that shows our Tor address and our LAN, what our where we can hit the management interface from the local network. So they generate a host name. I'm not quite sure. I don't think you can change that host name. I've tried looking into it, and I don't think you can. So let's see if we can hit this. So I'm back on my machine now, and yes, I can hit my Start9 Embassy OS machine that I've set up from the local network, and so I no longer need to use my external monitor, and I can move forward everything from my computer. So hopefully it'll look a bit better. And then from this point on, we can just kind of like look in to like the features of Start9 because we want to install a Bitcoin node. So let's do that. Okay. So we're going to go to the marketplace, and they've got all the different software here. They even have a Nostr relay. But we're going to go Bitcoin. And they've got Bitcoin Core. We're going to install Bitcoin Core. The version was released. This version was released December 16, 2022. Which we can install. And so we can see it downloading. We can see it validating. And
is the embassy doing checksums for these things as well automatically? I'm using unencrypted. Yes. So it's pulling from source. I guess I believe it is. Okay. Don't quote me on that though.
It has to validate the whole blockchain, right?
It has to validate the whole blockchain, yeah.
So that's going to take weeks or something, or days.
Depending on your connection. Yeah. And then we can talk about running your node as a prune node, and there are additional software, different apps on here that can help with that as well. So they want us to switch to HTTPS. That's fine. Just getting this is because the device itself generated its certificate. It's saying, oh, this isn't a recognized certificate with anything that we see. It's like, well, yeah, because the device generated the certificate, so it's okay.
I like that it said you can download the certificate. And
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, we can download it as well, and we won't get prompted with that. So I can show that maybe later if we have time. So now I'm using a secure connection and encrypted connection. So I've installed the app. It needs configuring. I still need to configure. They've got some instructions. They have a really nice write-up about pruning, syncing it. Yeah, it's great. We're just going to configure, and pretty simple and straightforward. We're going to use all defaults. We're going to save, and we're going to start our Bitcoin Core software. So like Doug said, it's going to take some time to sync the full blockchain, and it may take several days depending on your connection. So that's, well, I guess we could show, if I wanted to stop it here and go into like a prune node, you can customize the configuration, and you can, I believe it's in pruning mode right here. So you can actually set it as a prune node. Yeah, you can set, let's see if we set manual, we can set fail-safe chain size, the amount of megabytes. If we do automatic, that's probably what we want to do. It sets to 550. Okay. not allowed. So I've got some transaction index. They don't like this specific setting. I got to disable this in order to run it as a prune node. So
Even if you want to run a prune node, you still have to have a source for the valid UTXO set, which
Yeah.
I don't know if that means you got to download the whole blockchain first and then prune it.
So it will go through the process of like evaluating everything. So it might take several days. It won't take several days. So it might take some more time. So it will validate the entire blockchain. And then when we want to go through and look at all the entire UTXO sets, you use Bitcoin Proxy. And this is another app that's on Embassy. And this allows us to, there's a lot of other apps that, Bitcoin related apps that want to go look at the full UTXO set. This specific app will help us resolve those particular types of issues for other apps. That we
Is
have.
this sort of like a trusted source for the blockchain that you basically are accepting the fact that you're trusting them?
Yeah, I think.
Wait, it's still
Unless-
validating the blocks though, right? I mean,
It's still validating the blocks as they're coming in.
But like some
Um,
port backward, I assume you're just saying, I don't have that data, or I'm trusting them for that data, or something.
It will dynamically fetch the block over a P2P network and then verify its hash to ensure validity. Yeah, I mean, unless you guys have a better context, I thought that's what was going on. I thought that it was referencing other nodes, UTXO sets, its other peers, but So if you run in a prune node on Embassy, you want to run Bitcoin Proxy so you can get access to other apps that require a full node.
Oh, I see.
I have a question. Why are you? Because you had a pretty big hard drive in that thing.
Yeah.
So why run a prune node in this case?
It would just be for if we don't want to wait for it to sync.
Okay.
I guess in that sense, it's always better to run a full node because again, that's where you're actually decentralizing the ledger. More people are, keeping a full record of the transactions that are occurring. But if you want to have, like, let's say if you don't have a 1 terabyte, you could get away with 500 gigs or whatever you have. If you want to, be up and running a little bit quicker and not have to wait for the entire blockchain to sync, you could do it this way. There's options. So we're running Bitcoin Proxy. And now we've got both Bitcoin. We can look at the services installed. We've got both Bitcoin Core at syncing and Bitcoin Proxy. I'm not quite sure how long it's going to take in terms of if we're running a prune node and we're running Proxy, how long it would take for Bitcoin Core to get up and running. I don't know. I've not done that. But it would not take as long. And then...
You still need the error message up there.
Oh, oops. Sorry. Yeah. And then now we want to talk about Lightning, right? We're trying to get all this is so we can get running our own Lightning node. That's what we've been working on. So the next component, we want to go to the Lightning tab, and we want to go to LND. So this is the Lightning Network daemon, and it's by Lightning Labs. And again, very simple. There are some dependencies. So you require a Bitcoin Core, of course, and then it is optional to run Bitcoin Proxy if you're running it as a prune node. So install.
You recommend LND over Core Lightning?
I think it's just for a pleb. I think LND is probably very sufficient. I think there's different use cases for different things. There have been LND is probably more. A lot of people run LND, and so maybe in the past there have been more attacks against LND. There's been more focus on LND, but I don't know. It depends. I know organizations, Bitcoin companies are starting to run Core Lightning, Seed Lightning. I don't know. It's just.
Do they give you the option?
I believe it only supports LND.
I saw Core Lightning over there.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes. Okay, yeah. So I haven't done it. So you can run both core. You can run a core node, or you can a Core Lightning
Do
node.
you
or-
run Start9 Grant with LND?
I run Start9 with LND, and then I run Nix Bitcoin with Core Lightning, which is a more hardened project.
Really?
Yeah, and that's down the road. Maybe Jordan and I can talk about that. But Nix Bitcoin is a security hardened operating system where they extrapolate all the different privileges and permissions for all the different apps, and so you're not running with root privileges across the.
Yeah.
So Embassy OS isn't as good in that regard. Like some apps can, if there's a malicious app.
I think if like maybe someone could compromise a service and potentially, again, all these are like Docker services, and so if you could break out of the Docker container service, I don't know how. Maybe there's a vulnerability. Then that Docker container is running with root privileges. I think by default it's set up to run Docker containers with root.
But that's not unique to Embassy. That's just Linux and containers in general.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Are all of the applets running on a single like Docker network?
I don't know. Probably. Yeah. Oh no! Wait. No, sorry. No, they aren't. They're on separate networks, I believe. You can. I don't think they are actually. I think they're all separate. Or there might be a setting for you to actually separate them. So let's just make sure we understand how to run LND. Yep. And we go to configure. We can save an alias. Is that mandatory? I forget. It's been a while since I've gotten to this point. We don't have to save them. And then we're now running a Bitcoin node with LND, an LND node, and Bitcoin proxy. And we're running as a prune node, and we're just waiting for the blockchain to sync. So now we've done it. Bitcoin node, Lightning node. We're there. We just gotta wait. I guess some of the other things that might be interesting to look at, again, some of the Lightning apps that are cool that we, probably down the road we want to look at. LNBits is a free and open source a Lightning store. They've got Lightning a jukebox. They've got a Lightning faucet. They've got a lot of really cool tools. You can do LNURL pay and LNURL withdrawal, and there's a lot of really cool functionality you can get through bits.
So Start9 seems kind of like a better Umbrel, right? Where it's sort of got a graphical sort of front end with the installed labs.
I would say it's a more pleb-friendly version of Umbrel.
Which I thought Umbrel was the most pleb-friendly thing out there. So you're saying it's just better than Umbrel in every way.
I think the other reason why it's better than Umbrel is because you can use, because we were talking about this before, you can use it for both a Raspberry Pi. They make an ARM-based version, and they also make an x86, an Intel-based version as well. So it supports more hardware.
Yeah, that's great. It's huge. Is it free and open source?
It's free and open source.
So that's better than Umbrel, period. So,
Yeah.
Okay, so it seems like almost seems like there's no reason to run Umbrel anymore for anyone, like unless you just.
I do think there's more apps and things. There's more development in terms of, the App Store.
Switching friction, right?
Yeah,
You're
I mean,
running-
you've already set up Umbrel, sure, but I mean, if you were starting from scratch and getting the best advice from Grant, you could set up this.
But also Umbrel is older than this, right?
I think so because
No?
back in
Could
2021,
be.
at least back when PlebNet launched in 2021, everybody was on Umbrel, and I don't think anybody was talking about Start9.
I remember
Exactly.
I remember looking at Start9 in late in 2020.
Maybe it was just not socialized well.
Yeah, Umbrel has done a better job, I think, of getting their word out there and kind of going viral for I don't know.
Maybe all the use cases that
Yeah,
Pleb wanted weren't fully built out in Start9 at that time, or maybe they were. They just
Start9 was just a hardware company initially, and Embassy OS I think is newer.
no, I remember them having they had it back then too. I mean,
Really?
Yeah. I remember
Maybe
looking-
Maybe they didn't give it away at the beginning.
they had they did like kind of a new revamped overhauled one, I believe. So this is like the newer version of Embassy OS, but they had one. They just weren't as popular as Umbrel for whatever reason.
The other thing that I wanted to mention here is you can sideload a service. You can install additional packages that are not in the marketplace. Again, that's more advanced, not really pleb, but if you wanted more on your node besides what's there.
I mean, you could probably
More like what?
More apps, more.
you could drop down the Linux command line and just do it, right? If you
Sure.
wanted to, in your house.
Like the Vault Warden, for example.
Well, yeah, Vault Warden's already on here,
Right.
but yeah, there's something like that. Yeah. And then the other reason why, again, I think I really enjoy Embassy OS is because they offer a lot more. Now, when you install more of these apps on your Bitcoin node that has Bitcoin on it, because it's a hot wallet, these apps create additional points of entry in case someone wants to compromise your device. So if you've got a really locked down Bitcoin Core node service, but you've got a really mismanaged bad Nextcloud file server, someone would see that file server, potentially exploit that service and pivot into your Bitcoin Core where your Bitcoin is. So
If you were, I mean, let's suppose you had like, a whole lot of Bitcoin, a whole lot of dollar value on the node, to the point where like the dollar value that you're storing in your node makes the hardware cost and the setup cost sort of irrelevant, because you're storing it. At that point, it would probably make sense to say, run the bare minimum functionality that I need, strictly like Bitcoin Core and Lightning, or LND, or Lightning, whatever you want. And then if I wanted a start nine with a whole bunch of other cool functionality, just have a separate device for that, which you would have maybe a little bit less strictures around. So if it's more of an experimental node where you've got a small amount of Bitcoin, then you probably don't mind having 25 other apps running. But if it's a lot of money, you may want to lock it
Isn't
down.
the better solution there really just to move that Bitcoin to cold storage and not keep it on your hot wallet, rather than trying to beef up your wallet? Like, what's the argument for wanting to keep a lot of Bitcoin on?
Well, I guess one argument is, if you're Michael Saylor, maybe you've got so much Bitcoin in cold storage that you don't mind having 20 Bitcoin on your Lightning node or whatever. Just so depends on who you are. How
I guess if you're
going
gonna
And if you want to do
leverage it
like
for
routing
spending.
payments, right?
And then the other thing to Ida's point is, there are people, Nitesh is here today, like Nitesh and some of the other guys who are really, really strong Lightning node runners. I mean, it's a source of income for them, and it scales based on how much Bitcoin you have in it. So if you're really technical and really know what you're doing and really want to devote your time to it, I mean, you can sort of make it a really useful passive income source. And so when you do that, then you're like, well, I'm going to work really hard to make this node locked down and really good at routing, and then I'm going to scale it up with as much Bitcoin as I have to put in it. You probably still want some in cold storage, but it depends on who you are and how you weigh those two things. The risk of having it out of cold storage and in a hot wallet versus the upside of maybe paying your monthly rent or something.
In that instance, is the Bitcoin that's on the Lightning node separate from the Bitcoin on your Bitcoin node because you've moved it over there to facilitate Lightning payments?
it's not separate, right? It's deposited into a hot wallet, and then
But depending on the channels that you have, right?
You first move it to a Bitcoin. You first put it in your Bitcoin node, right? It's basically you could not even have Lightning installed, and now you have Bitcoin on your Bitcoin node. But then because the Bitcoin node and the Lightning node are running together on the same device and know how to talk to each other, when you open a channel, it'll pull Bitcoin out of your Bitcoin node, open a channel. It'll broadcast the transaction onto the blockchain as a 2 of 2 multi-sig with your channel partner, and then the Bitcoin will say it's no longer on chain, it's now in Lightning, and so it'll kind of move over.
I agree. I want to do a well actually. I'd say with LND, LND actually has its own I forget it has its own spec for generating seed phrases. So when you a lot of times when you're running LND, it's not using the Bitcoin Core wallet. It's actually using the LND wallet.
Oh, really?
So it's like your own on-chain wallet with LND, and then you're opening the channel from that LND wallet.
Okay.
Usually.
So it's maybe a different on-chain Bitcoin wallet. You might have 2 of them on that box if you got Bitcoin Core running and you got LND running.
But absolutely, I agree. LND is going to be constantly
like
talking
this.
to that Bitcoin Core.
This is the on
to
chain.
figure out the status.
And this is on chain.
Grant, I wanted to check in with you in terms of the stream and all that. Is there anything else that you'd like to demo, or would you like to just go to Q&A and helping people with their installs and all
I
that?
think the only other thing would just be, we kind of talked about it a little bit. You can create a backup of your entire MCOS if you had files and everything, and then that's where I could get into accessing. So I'm on my SanDisk SSD. I could get access to backup on my that M.2 drive. I could back up all my stuff there. So just an option in terms of, again, providing some more resilience. Running a node is all about keeping it up. And so if it does have equipment failure and if you need to restore it at Embassy, makes it really easy to kind of get back up and operate.
So that's like if your drive fails, then you've got all the data there on another drive.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's one of those odd things though, right? Because like if you try to back up, for example, like all the data on your Lightning node, and maybe you back it up like, I don't know, once an hour. Well, then you go and send some payments into some other things, and then it crashes, and then you restore from backup. You could be in trouble because you may have brought back an older channel state and tried to put it out there as correct, and then you could end up setting yourself up to get a justice transaction thrown at you. So it's something you have to be careful of.
It's the world of backups, incremental, differential. These are all different, like, how do you want to hold the complete backup file? How often do you want to do a backup? Yeah.
So, I mean, if you do have a situation where you're running on Lightning node and it crashes, I would say get help. Like go. You could talk to somebody from this group. We could pull in someone from FloodNet. Natasha would be the perfect guy. Basically, those guys will typically say, okay, we have a crash node here. And usually the smart thing to do is you want to have, obviously for your Bitcoin node, you want your seed words, so your 12 or 24 words. And then for your Lightning node, you need to keep up with static channel backup files. And whenever you open or close a channel, that static channel backup file will need to be changed or stored. With LND, there's a really nice way to set it up to interface with Telegram, so that anytime you have a channel open or close on your node, it will broadcast and drop a static channel backup file into Telegram for you, and it will just be sitting there waiting. So that's definitely a useful tool. One of the maybe arguments for LND over Core Lightning is a lot of those tools are set up for something called Balance of Satoshis, which Alex Bosworth maintains. It's got a lot of very pleb-friendly tools, a lot of pleb-friendly documentation out there. And once you get that set up, I mean, it's nice because I'll look at my phone and just pull up the Telegram channel for my node, and it'll say, oh, look, I routed a payment, somebody sent me some Bitcoin, I got a new channel opening, here's my static channel backup file. So you can kind of watch everything your node's doing through Telegram, which is kind of nice. I don't know if there's something similar yet for Core Lightning. But yeah, so the things that, the unfortunate part of this hands-on demo is there's kind of all the setup which happens before you sync the blockchain. And once you finish, the next questions typically are, okay, how do I open a channel, and who do I open a channel to?
Yep.
And then how do I get inbound liquidity?
Connect the wallets.
Yeah, and then setting up things like the Telegram bot and automated restart, whereas if your node goes down, you want to come back up and restart everything automatically, not have to unlock it yourself. And so there's some stuff there to set up. There's great Wikipedia documentation on the PlebNet wiki. If you go there, it's pretty easy to follow if you're running. I think the easiest is just to remember a lot of the documentation you're running on all of it. In the LND setup, I think you should be able to follow it. I was able to follow it pretty well for Raspberry Blitz. I'm guessing it won't be too much harder here, but you're typically getting into some command line stuff. So you're going to drop down the Unix command line, and you may be typing things in from the command line. So it's not a bad thing to get some help on if you're not comfortable with Unix command line. I know we've had some sessions here on Saturdays where Brian's been helping with that and stuff, but there's plenty of plebs out there that knew nothing about Unix command line and are running these nodes and have all these tools set up. The best thing I would say is, draw upon help from this group. We've got a lot of really technical people and a lot of people with experience. And then, also join ClubNet and draw upon help from them. Because, if you happen to ask for help in the middle of, the night and there's not something going on with this group, then you can often get help from those guys or whatever.
Question about the backups.
Yeah.
So he described a lot of specific backups. Is all that included in the embassy backup?
I think it's just you can back up all your different apps. So in
So
terms
we
of
should
like an hourly or every 10 minutes, I don't know. I haven't done much backup functionality within here, so that's
Yeah, the
new
backup
questions
stuff I
for
was
me.
talking about was specific to Bitcoin and Lightning. The embassy's probably trying to do more of a backup of the device.
Yeah.
And my point is, you want to be a little careful with trying to back up a device, and not think about it from the standpoint of Bitcoin and Lightning, because, if you reinstall from scratch from a backup that might be a little old, then you could end up in trouble on Lightning, right? Because Lightning, you need to pretty much always have the most current state of every channel. And if you don't have it, then your best bet is to, if you have the static channel backup file and you have your seed words, you can restore your node pretty well. But oftentimes it's best to just close everything down, close all your channels, get all your Bitcoin back, start all over. This is usually harder to recover. otherwise.
So we should be doing that separately.
Yeah, I think, at this point, we'll transition into breakout. We'll try to help everybody. If they don't have Embassy installed, help them install Embassy. Or if they want to do something else, we can help them with their nodes. I think the only other thing to mention is talking about channel management and, getting that initial liquidity. So we've got our node at this point, and hopefully at the end of the day today, we'll have their node up. We'll have our Lightning node ready. Next week, we are going to be working on getting that channel liquidity, right? I believe, did we ever lock that in?
I think it's like the week after.
Week after? Okay.
Yeah.
The week after, we're going to be doing exactly that. We're going to be trying to talk about channel management. Maybe we can open up some channels. Maybe we can, work together on doing that. But we've got the hardware, we've got the software. Now we're going to start working on the channel function.
Okay.
2 weeks.
So to anyone on the stream, if you have, we're gonna go off camera here and go off audio. We'll have the chat open if you do want to send in questions, and we might be able to answer them for you. But it's effectively the end of the regular workshop. Give a round of applause real quick for Grant.